Hello, people. Welcome to the show. This is Lee Cole with my partner, James Proctor. And we are going to have an interesting guest today. Well, we have Tom Vecchia here, but I think we brought him in for this conversation because I had a feeling Tom knows a lot about this. And we're going to talk about the Rico Act, and because it's in the news right now. And we're going to discuss some things that have been said about it. The Rico Act, we're kind of going to go over the history of the Rico Act and how it's being used now. And James, how are you doing today?
Hey, doing really good. Looking forward to the conversation. I think it'll be fun.
And Tom, how you been doing?
I've been well. Been a little busy, but I'm glad to be back, Lee. Thank you.
And I like to make it. I'm gonna make it. I want to make an apology to Tom on here about something. Uh, I used to get on Tom's case because he used to always get all these views coming in, and I said to him, "It's not possible, Tom. It's not possible." And then I noticed he told me, Lee, start doing shorts, start doing shorts. So I started doing them, and I got like I'm averaging 10,000 views a day. And even though I have a video down for say 2,000, and it looks, and people say, oh, it's only 2,000 on video, but they don't look at the whole big picture, Tom, do they?
Correct. In order to build your brand on YouTube, you have to take advantage of each and every viewer opportunity. And YouTube is giving you a lot of views on shorts because they're trying to compete with TikTok.
Yeah. Okay. Well, and we're hoping to have a show down the road about that, about building your show and your brand.
Would love to chat about it. Would love to chat about it.
But this is more interesting now, and I'm going to ask you the first question, Tom. When you see this, it's kind of scary that they're using these racketeering charges now, the RICO Act, because it seems like they can use this to bring anybody down they want.
Well, kind of runs full circle, if you will. We'll get to Giuliani in a second. So the RICO Act was written by G. Robert Blakely. He's a professor this is, I think, preceded the McClellan hearings. Then signed into law by Nixon of all people. So kind of with that being said, is obviously Giuliani is the one who really enforced it against organized crime. And then obviously the Commission case, exactly. The Commission case was kind of the linchpin of his utilization, which some people argued that in retrospect might have been somewhat of an overreach, but primarily it was used for organized crime.
Right. But the one thing we do know that these people that were involved in the Commission trial, they were actually heads of family.
Yeah, essentially each of the heads of the family were there, with the exception of Cingigante, as we know from a historical perspective. But for the most part, either the boss or underboss or kind of senior leadership was involved in that case. Correct.
Like Bruno Indelicato was.
There were some there. Yeah, there were some there. Indelicato was not, I believe, even in the administration, but he kind of got roped in on that one. Jerry Lang, I believe, was the underboss, but again, there's some kind of a disputes around that as well. So it wasn't just necessarily the leadership. There was other charges levied as well. And
like
people,
Ralph Scopo was another one that was part of that trial. But
correct.
Okay, so what James, what would you like to throw in here about the RICO Act before we get going on this?
No, I mean, it's just, as we know, also Castellano and Bellotti didn't make it to trial because they were killed, but they would definitely gotten the same sentence as the others. But yeah, I think it's an overreach in a lot of cases, and it took 10 years for the government to actually know how to use RICO as a way to bring down organized crime.
And how would you say?
Real quickly, I want to dovetail that.
Yeah.
Not that it was a dormant tool for prosecutors, but it was not widely used until, ironically, Giuliani really put the foot on the pedal and utilized it as a strong prosecutorial tool.
Yeah.
And now, wasn't it used in the case you set out in California beforehand, James? A biker case or something?
Yeah, there was a case that was used in the late 70s that was actually considered the first time that it was used. So, I mean, they used, I believe, the Hells Angels there's back in '79 they used RICO, and so that was U.S. versus Barger, and so that was one of the first uses of it, and also as we know with Giuliani that part of his motivation too was the book by Bonanno.
Banana,
Yeah.
Okay, and I like to talk about Giuliani because, and Sammy Gravano. Now here we got Giuliani. Now he's getting a lot. He's getting a lot of pushback on him because they're saying, now it's being used against you. And Sammy Gravano made a statement about this, but the fact of the matter is, Sammy did no time from a Rico Act, and on top of that, Sammy Gravano seems to forget that you cannot hope. So they're hoping that Giuliani gets convicted. These people that hate him, but they love Trump, and they're both being indicted on the same charge. So they don't say to themselves, if Giuliani goes down in this RICO charge, Trump goes down in this RICO charge.
Yeah, so I think there's a little bit to unpack there. I think Sammy has a gripe specifically with Giuliani, and it's not for what you think. Patrick Bet David, I'm a huge fan of his. He has a great podcast. Shout out to him. And he did the Mafia States of America, and he got literally Sammy and Michael Francis across the table, a former underboss and a former capo, son of a legend, to literally have kind of a cursory sit down, a kind of a mock sit down, and then on top of it, they also got Giuliani to show up as well to get interviewed, not with them in California, separately off air. But when asked, would you meet with Mike Francis? He did. And he was also on Joe, what's his name? Pagliarulo's show, Joe Pags.
Yeah.
And he had Francis on along with Rudy Giuliani. So if guys from our generation, that's mind-blowing, right? Now, when asked to meet with Sammy, he's declined to meet with Sammy and said, I wish I put him away for 100 years. I think Sammy got butthurt by that, respectfully. And I think that's kind of motivating him now versus maybe a political agenda.
Yeah, but see, I can understand that Michael Francis is a kind of a classy guy, whereas Sammy is a sleazy murderer and keeps covering up things that he did in his life, where Michael Francis just basically comes out and says, this is what I did. Boom, boom.
Yeah.
Well, Sammy
I had the dubious pleasure of interviewing both. I interviewed Michael 3 times. I interviewed Sammy once. I'm friends with Karen, pretty good friends with Karen and Ramona Rizzo. So I see things from a lot of different perspectives that people may or may not have seen. But I can say in terms of business and how they conduct themselves, you could just tell they're 2 kind of different styles and 2 different kind of guys.
I've definitely heard that. Okay, James.
Yeah, and I remember seeing that with Mafia States of America, and Patrick Bay David, he wanted them to all 3 of them be in there, and and it looked like it was going to happen, and then he just didn't show up. They reach out to him, and he just didn't feel comfortable sitting with Sammy, and like you said, 100. He said he wished he'd put him away for 100 years, and so what it implies to me is that he feels, and he said this. He said that Michael, he believes he really has changed, but apparently this is a corollary with Gravano, where he doesn't believe that Sammy actually changed.
Okay, let's go to the next thing. We're going to go. I'm going to put up right here. This is how scary this whole thing's becoming with this case that's going against Georgia in Georgia against Trump. We don't like to bring politics in here, but this isn't really politics in general. This is something that's being used in politics. That's how I look at it.
Can I point out something on this, just
yes,
that's relevant? So, one thing to understand when we talk about RICO, and you might be able to add to this, Tom, is that so you have the federal RICO cases, and that was what we're talking about, was instituted by Congress in 1970.
Correct.
But most of the states, I believe 33 or so of the states, actually have state RICO charges that could be brought, and there's different levels. There's different things that can be implied as being RICO with states. So I believe with Georgia, it's a little bit broader reach or broader cases that could be Rico versus the federal statutes.
I'm not a lawyer, but that's my understanding as well. And then specifically, I think it comes down to, I think they were getting on them for soliciting public officials, making false statements, and obstruction of justice. I think those are kind of the three major RICO indictments against them.
And you've had lawyers in here that are shocked that they're on this, because these are lawyers that basically came in and were doing their jobs. And you have like some lawyers with like one charge. And the scariest charge on here is one of the charges that Trump was questioning the results of the election. That is scary, because are we at a point now? Is this going to be used where every time an election is brought into question, that person can be charged for basically saying, hey, the election doesn't seem right here? And one of the charges against Giuliani is that he said that dead people voted. We've heard, how many times have we heard politicians saying dead people had voted in their election?
Yeah, no, this is scary. This is a scary one, because no other president has ever been indicted. I believe now he's up to 4 indictments, plus some civil stuff in regards to Donald Trump. So this is some scary business.
And another thing that's scary too is that they filed these charges and had the court case before the grand jury was even done looking at the case and saying whether they're going to suggest going up to trial. So right there, people don't realize that they're going to have a chance of having this case thrown out just by that.
Well, did you hear the excuse? It was accidentally uploaded.
Yeah, so basically they knew what the grand jury was going to say ahead of time. That's what they're saying, because it was hours ahead of time. It wasn't like a couple minutes.
Yeah. Nothing's accidental like that. That's all done on purpose.
Yeah. So if you really look, why this may be happening, and this is just me surmising, the first challenge here is they may be utilizing politics for prosecution, which, although this historically has been done, but this case is way out of any spectrum of normality. The second thing is, I think whether you like President Trump or former President Trump or not, that's for you to decide. You probably already formed your opinion. I think this is backlash against his appointees for the Supreme Court, because those are the ones that are really going to shape our policy over the next 30, 40, 50 years. Even if they vote on something now, it's going to have a lot of implications. So I think that kind of struck a spike, if you will, or a bullet into the heart of many people that are leftist or liberal. And I think those states and those prosecutors, et cetera, are trying to possibly get back at him because of that. And then number 2, try to prevent him from securing another presidency.
Yeah, and I think too. Sorry.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, I was just going to say, in addition to that, to me, it seems like there could be some conspiring going on between some of the state governments and cases on this, because one of the things we know is that, on a federal conviction, that Trump could easily get pardoned. But in state cases like this, then that's outside the ability to be pardoned. And I think that's one of the reasons, too, that there's these state charges that are indictments that are being put out there. And the timing also is impediment for the 2024 election. It seems to be tied to that as well.
Well, here's some major issues we're having. One of the charges here, they did something that they very rarely you'll ever see. They talked about an issue going on in Pennsylvania in these charges, which Pennsylvania has nothing to do with Georgia. And they threw that case out in Pennsylvania, by the way, but it's in here. But I want people to take a look at this.
Yeah.
Now, this is pretty much what they're saying. If you look at all this is how many charges.
Yeah. I mean, your audience probably knows well enough, and you guys do as well, that if they were to just levy 4 counts against them, his defense team, depending on the situation and the proof, they can negotiate, right? But especially federal prosecutors, they'll levy 50 charges against you as a strategy and tactic. So when you're a juror or potential juror, people say, kind of, well, he's probably not guilty, but however, of the 40 things, you know what? He's got to be guilty of 1 or 2. So in my personal opinion, I think it's a strategy used by prosecutors, both federal and state, to levy more charges to kind of tack them on. And even for the media, oh, wow, he faces up to 111 years in jail if convicted, right? Which is not going to be the case, but it's just a tactic used by prosecutors.
Tom, what do you think the chances are that these cases are going to wind up in the Supreme Court?
Well, it gets tricky. So obviously, if he's found guilty in any of these cases, well, one of which is federal, I believe, what will probably happen where you got to exhaust the state, got to remediate the state. So you have your state charges, and then there might be a state superior court. Then there might even, I think, a state Supreme Court in some cases. But this all could eventually make it up there. But you're talking years of litigation. Here's the thing. He can run as a convict. If people could have run for office in the U.S. at the federal level, if they had no convictions, 1/3 of our House of Representatives would be gone. So he can run if convicted, right? He could technically run even if he's in jail. My concern for this situation is some of these charges between the 4 are very serious, and if convicted, he could face jail time. Now, if people are wondering, well, why didn't they remand him? Why isn't he in jail? He is still under the protection of the Secret Service, and the only reason why he's not in jail or getting arraigned or being thrown in the county jail like anybody else, just the logistics of protecting him in any type of lockup is impossible, virtually impossible, because you have security protocols that he's entitled to as the next president, but they conflict with a lot of obviously jail and prison terms. So I'd like to see, if he does get convicted, how you can argue that he should serve any time.
Okay. Well, they're going to argue that. A matter of fact,
they're trying. They are trying, and they're, for the most part, at least getting somebody to sign off to roll out these indictments. So they're succeeding, at least in that sense.
Okay, and I just want to. I'm just going to read this to give you an idea. This is the introduction to the lawsuit. Defendant Donald John Trump lost the presidential election held on November 3rd, 2020. One of the states he lost was Georgia. Very questionable Georgia, by the way. Trump and other defendants charged in this indictment refused to accept that Trump lost. Okay, I still don't hear a crime. They are knowingly and willingly joined to conspire to unlawfully change the outcome of the election in favor of Trump. Very little evidence of that. That conspired to contain commonly plan and purpose to commit 2 or more acts of racketeering activity in Fulton County, Georgia, elsewhere in the state of Georgia, and in other states. First of all, they shouldn't be talking about other states in this, because there is no charges from other states that he did anything. So they're assuming other states. There's so many things. Do you know that the people that have been charged in this still have not been served any papers from this case?
Well, you're talking a lot of high-profile people that might be hard to get to, believe it or not as easy as you would think. But yeah, that's crazy that some people have not even been served.
And they say that if Trump says, I'm not coming in, there's not really much Georgia can do, because Georgia would have to get the okay from the governor of Florida, who already said that he will not extradite Donald Trump under any circumstances.
Well, no, that's so they got to be careful. So if let's just say, sake of argument, Trump didn't show up in Miami, in Atlanta, or wherever to answer or submit a plea and evaded, the state would actually go to the Secret Service, because they're the ones who protect him, and those are the people that would probably levy the arrest, not the states. So I think that's some political posturing, in my opinion.
Okay. Is there a chance that he can? I guess there is a chance he can go into Georgia and the judge might say, "We're going to hold you."
They can, but like I said, practically and pragmatically, he would have to get processed. He would have to go to probably the county jail. The county jail may or may not have segregation. There's protocols and policies for protecting the president. Secret Service would have to sign off. I mean, it's a lot of different organizations, a lot of alphabet organizations would have a say in it. It's not as simple as having like an ex-mafia boss who's in PC. This is a bigger deal. So I just think logistically and pragmatically, no judge would reasonably detain him. And if they did, it would be a logistical nightmare.
Yeah, and also before Trump comes in for before an arraignment, that's going to be pre-negotiated. That's going to be negotiated out. It's going to be a script. The whole process will be scripted out.
James.
Yep, and so the judge will sign. Everything will be in agreement. The big question on the Georgia one is he going to have to get his picture taken? Get a mugshot, get fingerprints. They didn't require that in the other indictments based on who he is, because he's obviously one of the most recognized people in the world. So the idea of him being a flight risk wasn't an issue. And so, that was the big thing. But all that usually gets pre-negotiated or negotiated out beforehand.
Yeah.
Okay. So he shows up in Georgia. He's going to get charged. Now they're talking about the trial dates being in January, the first trial starting. It's obvious that this is being done purposely. Let's talk first about the judge that's in charge of the case in Washington, who has a history of being an ultra leftist and a history of hate toward Donald Trump. How hard will it be for Donald Trump to get that lawyer thrown off the case? I mean, that judge thrown off the case, because the judge has to agree to it.
Yeah. So, and I love to hear James' perspective. One of the good and or bad things about our system and processes is essentially depending where you are. But if you're a judge for the most part, especially state and or federal, you're a judge for life. And the positive behind that is you can do things and not have to worry about recourse. You don't got to worry about politics. You don't got to worry about trends. And you could really judge and have a truly judicious and fair bench, right? That's the idea behind it. The downside is, and you yield a lot of power. The downside is you just can't be taken off. There would a lot would have to be done to take that judge off. And then number two, try to argue that, it's political. Well, if it's political, you removing the judge would be political. So, okay, I'm not sure about the legalese behind that, but they can as a strategy and probably waste some of their super PAC's money in trying to get the judge off, and that's a strategy lawyers will do. But I don't think that's the right strategy, and I don't think it's going to happen.
Yeah. I'm sorry. Do you find it pretty amazing that Trump is still pretty much tied, which probably means he's ahead in the polls of Biden?
Well, question is he tied with Biden, or people are just not happy with Biden's, kind of like what happened with Trump, right? Where there was two camps that didn't vote for Trump, people that didn't like him and the people that were pro-Biden, right? Now, a lot of people do not like Biden. I think his disapproval rate is over 50. It's really high. Inflation, and we all know the problems we're having. So my opinion is, I think there's a lot of people that hate Biden more than Trump nowadays. And I think those people are starting to go into Trump's camp.
Do you think there's a fear that they're saying to themselves, okay, if this election comes election day, we have no idea who's going to win, and Trump can win it in a landslide? Next thing you know.
Well, here's where it gets, here's where the plot thickens a little bit. Okay, so now Trump is good at pissing people off, right? And especially within the Republican Party. We got never Trumpers. We have people that he calls rhinos. whether Ryan, Pence, whoever who you want to talk about, and there's a lot of Christian conservatives that believe in his policies but not believe in him as a person. So a lot of backroom dealing, a lot of stuff going on. The Republican National Committee, what they could do and elect to do is, if he's convicted, right? Let's say he's convicted and doesn't serve any jail time. They theoretically can say, you know what, we're not comfortable giving you the nomination. We don't care how many primaries you won. They have the right to do that. And here's a challenge. I think the populace, the people that are Republican, want him in. But I think the powers that be within the political party, the kind of like the boogie people, don't want him in, my opinion.
And end of the day, though, if that happens, in my opinion, that destroys the Republican Party. Because you're going to have a lot of,
I'm gonna say something which you're not going to be happy with. The Republican Party is already becoming destroyed. I'm going to tell you why. There's an old expression: Democrats fall in love, Republicans fall in line. And that's why he won in 2020. You know what? I don't like Trump. He's got a million ex-wives. He's kind of a bad dude, a little sketchy business practices. But you know what? He's our guy. He's our president. And the Republicans aligned, right? You now fast forward to 2023, going into 2024 election cycle. Who's number two? Ron DeSantis. Ron DeSantis will not go on a podcast. Ron DeSantis will not go on a large show, traditional media, unless the pre-negotiated questions are done and it's a canned opportunity. So Ron essentially went from like 44% in the polls down to 15. I like, and I talked to Lee earlier about this, I like some of the other candidates. I like Vivek Ramaswamy. I think he has a lot to say. I don't think he has a chance. I don't see the Christian conservatives voting for a Hindu candidate, even though he does have mimicked religious values and political values are aligned. I don't see him getting it. Chris Christie's a joke. I'm from Jersey. That's not happening. Him putting away Kushner was the worst thing he could do politically. And then, Pence just not getting traction. I personally like Tim Scott. I don't always align with him on some of his social beliefs, but he's the one who put the urban infant stage. And then later on, when asked, why are you now as vice president, she responded with, that's politics. So it's not out of the realm of possibility where if some reason things are now here's the thing though, if things were going well with DeSantis and he was on the come and he was on the rise, right? You can argue that, you know what, hedge your bets a little bit, work out a deal with DeSantis, here we go, right? Versus if Trump wants to bow out or make DeSantis the king. Number one, DeSantis is not super popular with the populace or the establishment. So what I'm getting at is what'll happen is he may have to bow out for some reason, but then I'll have to go to political powers that be and say, who do you have for me, versus him picking that next person. And that's because of the weakness of DeSantis and his campaign. DeSantis is running a terrible campaign and he knows it.
And James, who do you think would be the best? Do you think that he'd be able to go get behind DeSantis? Your opinion?
Yeah, Trump. Here's the thing: if a couple of things that I wanted to bring up. So you have the situation where Trump could, we were talking about the Republican National Committee could say, hey, if you're indicted, you're convicted, you're not allowed to run.
Correct.
I think that Trump has an ego where he would try a third party type run, and that would guarantee the Democrats would win. And so as far as Trump going behind another, I just don't see him going behind or supporting another candidate, no matter who it is in that party. I just think that he believes he is the right choice for the Republican Party, and he's not going to go behind DeSantis, none of them. And I just don't see it. I don't know about you guys, but I don't see anyone that he would support unless it's himself.
Well, also, a lot of people feel that, this is probably right podcast to say this, a lot of people feel that he ran the government and runs his businesses like a mafia boss. So one of the things that he demands publicly, privately is loyalty. So let's kind of go through the inventory here. Number one, he pretty much helped DeSantis out, why he was running, why he was governor, federally, God knows what he gave him, promoted the state, promoted him. DeSantis, not too loyal. Mike Pence, he made him vice president. I mean, that's an honor right there. And now you're vice president. And I don't know if it probably has happened in the past, so forgive me for not knowing if it has or has not. But I don't know, recent memory, if a vice president ever ran against a president, not too loyal. And a few other ones that would surprise. Chris Christie. Well, Chris Christie's another situation because he put him behind him in that speech that one day to pretty much abuse him in front of the world, where meanwhile Chris Christie thought he was being up there for being his guy. So I thought that was that was a good move and funny move from Trump. So I just think that I don't know. This is a tough one. Tough one.
Yeah.
James?
I just don't see anyone that he would, get behind. And then, one of the things just we're talking about about the judge being able to, maybe they could get him taken off the case. But what I think is even a harder thing is how are you going to find a jury pool that's unbiased to actually try him? Because everyone has an opinion. That's the thing about Donald Trump. You either like him or hate him. There's no middle ground. I don't see a middle ground with him. Everyone has this opinion. So how do you actually get a jury pool that could make that decision?
Lee, can I tell you my Donald Trump story? I don't think I ever told that publicly, but could I share a quick Donald Trump story?
Yeah.
You remember the show The Apprentice?
Yes.
So it was my favorite show. I was obsessed with it. I tried out a few different years. I never got too far. One of the times they were Rutgers, because the Rutgers graduate won, kind of got a little far ahead second round, but didn't get meaningfully far enough. So one year he was having it at Trump Tower. It was a cattle call. A lot of people were there. They were expecting tens of thousands of people to show up, thousands of people to try out. So what I did was I had a young guy who was working for me at the time. And I said, Ed, do me a favor. You're going to sleep over in line. You're going to go there. You're going to sleep over in line, and I'm going to give you $300 for doing so, and I'm going to give you $400 if you're in the top 10, right? So sure enough, I was sitting at my buddy's house. I remember it like it was yesterday. A dog woke me up by licking my face. I'm like, oh my God, I got to get to Trump Tower. Get there at 8:30, showered, fresh, ready to go. Go to Ed. He's number 5. Here you go. Here's $400. Swap that in line. We're good to go. So we're at the first table there, and I'm coincidentally all the way at the end. So media's there, they're filming it, they're asking these questions, and they're asking people, when did you get here? One's like 2 days ago, one's like last night, one's like I mean, everybody essentially was there for either 48 or as little as 24 hours. And then there was me. And I'm like, I got here 5 minutes ago. I paid somebody $400 and I cut back in line. And I look over because I was the end seat and the cameras were there. Trump was sitting next to me, and he like not grabs me, but not pushes me. He puts his big hand on me and then pushes me and goes, kid, that's one way to do it. And then he got up and left. That's my Donald Trump story.
I think it's cool that you said he has big hands,
Yeah. I was thinking the same thing. He put his big hand. Okay.
I just gotta cut out the camera because the little one's coming in frame. So, but I could still speak.
No problem at all. Okay, so do you get a little bit upset, Tom, when you see that gangsters are upset at Giuliani because of they're kind of happy that he's in trouble now? Don't they seem to realize that he put a lot of bad people away and cleaned up New York? He was actually the mayor. He called the mayor. What do they call him again? Something mayor. Back after the
mayor, right?
Yeah, American mayor of New York. He cleaned up the city. He basically the Empire State Building was paying $100,000 a month garbage bills, and when all those people went down, it went down to 10,000. They had the Fulton Fish Market in control of basically all this criminality that was going on.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a big difference with Giuliani going after these guys compared to what's going on to Giuliani now.
Yeah.
And I kind of think it's spiteful when people are saying, well, good, Giuliani's going down. He deserves. It's like, do they realize that this man has dedicated so much time in life to law and being a mayor? And I think the worst thing that Giuliani did was getting involved with Donald Trump.
Well, so to unpack this particular thread, if you will, so, and Mike Francis was just on my show. He just talked about this recently. You kind of hear this, whether we like it or not, a lot of these ex-mob guys and the mob in general, for whatever reason, seems to lean right. Okay. Remember, historically, and this is just opinion of mine, that a lot of politicians that were easily swayed or corrupt or paid off, etc. It seemed to be Democrats were easier to influence in urban environments than Republicans were. For whatever reason, you could agree, you could disagree, just my opinion. Okay, so now you would think at the time, and also Democrats were very big on, bleeding hearts, limited sentences, less jailer inmates, whereas Republicans
and labor unions too. That
Correct.
was probably a lot of it with the Democratic Party was ingrained with labor unions, and so there was more of a tie between the mafia. And Michael Francis has said that Democrats and other mafia guys. So you're totally right, in my opinion.
Well, you hit the nail on the head, James. So in short, these guys are now right-leaning, right? And whether we like it or not, Giuliani kind of could have went off into the sunset and disappeared. So whether you like Giuliani or not, right? He stuck his neck out professionally, personally. Legacy for Donald Trump is now getting indicted, or now is indicted. So you kind of can't be, and again, you may or may not like this, Lee, but it's my opinion. You really kind of can't be a Trump guy and then not a Giuliani guy. So that's why these ex-mobsters are like, well, this is a chance to kind of piss on Giuliani, which Sammy's trying to do. But then in 2 seconds later saying, I'm a conservative and how we need Donald Trump. So I just think it's just bad form by those guys.
No, I that's basically what I'm trying to say, Tom.
Okay,
I'm saying, what I'm saying is if you can, they don't understand. If Giuliani goes down, Trump goes down, because they're pretty much all indicted on the same charges in Georgia. It's kind of like they're not using their brain here.
Well, remember, these guys are, ex-gangsters and not political scholars. I mean, Mike Francis, to me, appears to be much more intelligent, not just because he went to college, he just appears to be more worldly. I think he's in Italy now. He traveled a lot in Australia. He's seen a little bit outside of the U.S. Not that traveling makes you smarter, but at least gives you experience of other cultures. I just think Francis operates at a higher level than Sammy, respectfully, and others, in many different buckets, if you will. But I think you're 100% correct about that, Lee. If you are a Trump guy, then you need to stand behind Giuliani on this.
Yeah, and part of it too is even if you're not a Republican Trump guy or whatever, my concern is that this broad brush that they're using for Rico. So we're kind of tying back to Rico, and the problem is that if with these indictments and if there's convictions, then this sets precedents. And so what will end up happening is that every every president or every leader, regardless if they're Democratic, Republican, Independent, are going to face that. Because if you look at the broad brush that's being painted on Donald Trump and look at what Rico is, you could go back to Obama, you could go back to George Bush, you could go back to Clinton, you could go back to Reagan and Nixon. And what happens is every single president would be indicted for Rico, and that's because that they are in charge of a group of people. And they would say that's an enterprise. And so in every administration, you have people that's part of your group that has been indicted for federal crimes. And you could see where there's been multiple crimes that could be predicates that would actually meet the definition of RICO. So every single president could be indicted for RICO. It's a danger to our country and civil liberties, in my opinion. It goes way beyond Donald J. Trump.
And on top of that, the odds are like 90% that the Senate is going to go back into Republican hands next election. Every Democrat, and they're all up for election. If the Republicans don't win the Senate, they're never going to win it again, because this is the biggest opportunity for them. So, okay, just say the Congress stays Republican, the Senate gets Republican, and just say Trump gets in there, or just say another Republicans. Do people think there's not going to be revenge? Do people think they're not going to wipe out these? They're going to fire all these people that are doing what they're doing now and turn the same tools on them?
Well, it's tricky because that's what we don't want, and that's kind of what they're doing to him. So if they're like turnabout is fair play and they do that, it could be really bad, like James said, for all of us. I think it really comes down to, and unfortunately we haven't talked a lot about it because there's other stuff to talk about, but we really got to talk about the future of this country, what's going on. It's a disaster. What policies we need now, and what policies are needed to make sure we're in the positive direction in the future. And that's what scares me nowadays. I don't know what you guys think, but I think for the most part, we're not in good shape as a country. I think the rest of the world is laughing at us. And I'm just worried about, not about personalities and drama and politics. I'm very concerned about the policies that are going to be rolled out over the next 3 to 5 years. And then on top of it, like, for example, not mortgages. If you have a good credit score, you're actually penalized a 1.5 or whatever it is charge to subsidize those who don't have good credit, to kind of cover if they crap out. And why should I be penalized by having good credit to pay for somebody for not? So I didn't know that could be just an executive order. It went through. And there's some other stuff that really scares me. And listen, I said this in the past on your show. I'm a registered Democrat, but I have an open mind. I'm able to look at everything. I kind of lean towards more libertarian, if you will, but I'm a registered Democrat, and the Democrat Party scares me right now.
Yep, it's just and that I think you made a good point on that, because that's I just hope people understand from the show that regardless of if you like Donald Trump or not, that it goes a lot deeper than that. And so we just have to be careful what this means for the future. You know, it seems like it started a lot of this. You remember the 2000 election? That was very controversial. You know, it was really close, and that's where we're seeing with our country with politics, is that the ideology is pretty close. You know, 50-50, and it's just, and the thing is that now you've got extremes on both sides. You don't, that whole moderate type voter, there's not many of them left, you know?
Yeah, a matter of fact, I was thinking today that we have this big, beautiful, down the street here, we got this big, beautiful Amazon plant, and we have to thank that great woman, how the hell she ever got in office, is Ocasio, because at that time you had a mayor that was very liberal, de Blasio, that wanted them in, and this woman stopped it. You know, when you have things like this happening and thousands of jobs being cut out of New York and given to Texas, who has a lot of jobs here, you know, they can't find people to work there.
And good for Amazon for saying, you know what, we're awarding it to Queens. Here's what we're going to do. And then when the headache came big enough, just pulled out. A lot of business people, a lot of entrepreneurs would not want to piss off local government, would definitely not want to piss off the mayor of New York, an up-and-coming, if you will, powerful and influential congressperson, her and her squad. But Bezos said, you know what, I'm out. And I respect him for that.
Here's a serious question.
Hold on. I would like Newark to get the bid, and they gave him a really attractive bid, but that didn't happen.
here's a question for both of you. I want you both to give your honest opinion and don't pull back, hold back. Is it too late for this country to rebound? James, you go first.
Is it too late to rebound? I've always believed that history repeats itself. We have cycles. I believe that we still have enough good people in this country that we can rebound, that we can get back. We need good leadership. We need people that are willing to get into government, that aren't. We need uh, to remember that the government's for the people and of the people, and it's not just politicians and special interest groups. Feel like one of the biggest problems that we have is just the special interest groups that run both of the parties. And so, but I do believe enough in this country that we're resilient. We have a lot of smart people. This is still the best country in the world, in my opinion, and we will find a way to get past this, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Tom.
Short answer is yes, because we have systems in place that will prevent it from being imploded. However, it's going to get worse before it's going to get better. And I want to touch on a little topic that is finally coming to light out of mainstream media. And this kind of is akin a little bit to what happened with Bud Light and Target and that kind of stuff. So there's BlackRock, which has $1 trillion, I think $11 trillion in assets. You have State Street and Vanguard. They own 88% of the S&P 500. Those guys get together, and they're very powerful people, and said, we're going to put together this ESG score, environmental, social, governance, whatever it is. If you want money, you want real money, you're going to get a score. And if we don't kind of like your score, you're not going to get money. Tesla, which has electric vehicles, which will probably get a perfect score of 100, actually has a low score. And my personal opinion is because a lot of things that Elon Musk believes in, like free speech and so forth. So I think a bigger threat to this are those three entities, their agenda, and what they're doing to our country. So if this is new to you guys that are watching, please look up ESG score. Patrick Bet-David does a nice job of talking about it. Now, it got brought to light, and now they're backpedaling a little bit and saying, well, we might not do ESG score, but we may do something else. And there's a DEI score, etc. But that's the truth. These companies are doing, quote unquote, woke stuff, not in the interest of shareholders, not in the interest of their employees, but in the interest of these three big companies, because they have the financial faucet and they could turn it off immediately if they want to.
Do you think they're behind the interest rate in this country being raised the way it's been over the last? And people don't realize how serious this is with the interest rate being raised continuously.
I think it was more bad policy. Bad policies raise interest rates, and they probably have their hands somewhere in there. But these friggers, I'll say, not effers, but these friggers have money no matter what. These are the upper crusty Yale club. Meet me at 3:00 for a scotch, and we could insurrect a war in this country in 60 days if we needed to. We're talking about some like Fink and some really powerful people. And I want to kind of get, and I'm not a conspiracy theory. I don't have the aluminum foil hat on for this one, but these are something that people really need to look at. What's interesting enough is Republicans were historically aligned with big business, and Republicans were historically aligned with these kingmakers. But Soros and some of those other guys, they have a bigger effect on your life than you will ever know.
Well, what's happened is that we always said that the Republican Party was the party of millionaires. Well, the Democratic Party is the party of billionaires.
No.
Yeah. And the other, yeah, I mean, and then you look at, there is some backlash. You look at, I'm amazed at companies like Disney, and the reason I'm saying that is they have 5 of their 6 so-called blockbuster movies have failed, and so there's a lot of backlash against them, and they as a brand are really struggling. Look at ESPN, look at all their media type stuff. They're having to lay off people. Their quality of product is is worse. And that amazes me about Disney. But the problem is they forgot who their target market was, who their demographics are. That
Yeah.
is family, middle class family men, family men and women and children. They forgot that. And the people they're going for is in contrary, in all ways than that target market that they've had for 70, 80 years.
Well, that they say what, go woke or go broke, and me being a moderate and me being kind of in the middle, and I do marketing with my day job, so I have a little bit of a vested interest in branding and marketing and messaging. And the truth of the matter is, I don't think anybody's against inclusion. I really don't. If somebody's really against inclusion, I just think for the most part, people say, you know what, I don't agree with what you're doing. I don't even like what you're doing, but do you, but just don't enforce it on my children or don't enforce it on me. And the good thing about the free market, it will adjust itself, right? So they keep churning out shows that are maybe like, and it sounds like disingenuous too, like to have somebody kind of have a role just to have it. But I personally do believe in inclusion. I personally believe that there should be
Sure.
more open-mindedness and discussion because of middle ground. But yeah, and that's a whole nother show and topic on the ESG and all that kind of stuff. And that's my area of interest now because I think that the people that are running the World Economic Forum and so forth, those are the people calling the shots, and not our elected officials.
This is good stuff, Tom, because this is what I got to hope. Believe it or not, Jake Paul, I never thought I would say that, shows me there's hope in this world. And let me tell you why. Jake Paul is just this kid that started off with this show, not a rich family, not a poor family, but middle class family. Him and his brother get this show, and then he starts a show. He doesn't come off to me as very intelligent at times the way he speaks. But then Mike Tyson said something that really made me think. He says, Jake Paul saved boxing. He says, boxing wouldn't be coming back now if it wasn't for Jake Paul. We just had a gate, 3 fights on the last big pay-per-view where 3 fighters made over $1 million. And Tyson said that's because of Jake Paul. So here you got this one guy here that I used to clown about and stuff, but the more you listen to him, and you hope that there's more Americans like him, because he's kind of put pressure on, he's put his foot on the neck of Dana White. Dana White used to mock him, make a joke out of him. And now all of a sudden he's not being mocked. He's not that joke.
I'm impressed. I'm impressed. You know who Jake Paul is? He did say boxing. He just needs to fight people under 40.
Yeah, but it still doesn't matter because he's making money. He's giving these guys opportunities to make money, and that Diaz fight was as entertaining as all heck. But what I'm trying to say in general is when you got people like that, an uneducated kid like that he isn't too blind. His life was out of control. Then he went into boxing. It got his life back together. And then he's saying, hey, Dana White, why are your fighters making, you guys made a couple $1 billion last year, but your fighters are making 20,000. Hey, Dana White, I seen you sitting in a casino dropping $1 million on a card game.
Yeah.
But all your fighters are making $20,000, $30,000. When people like that come along.
Yeah, but in fairness to Dana White, they do pay out much less percentage basis on their purses than traditional boxing. There's no doubt about that, right? But where was traditional boxing during the pandemic? And I don't want to bring up too much of that.
I agree with you.
Where Dana White runs a good business, right? He pays less. There's no argument about that. But everybody actually gets paid, unlike his brother with Floyd Mayweather, is still fighting for money. They were able to afford to do closed arenas, and they were able to actually pay people out and continue during the pandemic because they may be frugal on their employees, but because they run efficiently, it's a free market, and they have a better enterprise. So I'm not sticking up for Dana White. I'm just giving the business rationale as to why they don't get a bigger part of the purse than traditional boxing.
I like Dana White.
Yeah.
I think Dana White is awesome because he sticks up to the media. He doesn't let anybody push him in the corner. I definitely like Dana White, but the fact of the matter is, I also like when people like Jake Paul or other people like him come along. And that's another thing, guys. Let me ask you this question. Do you think that the internet, like YouTube, have given us guys that are pretty smart, that don't have education, that come out there and say things and people start listening to them?
Well, first, don't conflate education and intelligence. I'm probably the perfect example. No, but in terms of not having traditional education or following, hey, should I do YouTube or should I go to college? I love the fact that somebody can be a creator and make even more money doing the stuff they love to do versus having to go through 4 years of school, racking up student debt. So I'm a huge proponent of kind of new media. And I think that, I think that scares the power that be, because you and I could have a pretty fruitful discussion. This would never, trust me, even if we had the following and even if we had the fans and even if we had the money and resources, this discussion would never be on a CNN, a Fox, an MSNBC, maybe a Newsmax, maybe. But so I like the fact that media is liberated and that the younger people are adopting it and not following the traditional careers that you and I were sold to build a good on. Get a good job, raise 2.5 kids, white picket fence, right? You're basically training people to be zombies, right? For the most part. But now I like the fact that new media offers new opportunities.
James?
Yeah, I mean, I'm totally with you on that. I think it opened up doors for a lot of people. The whole idea of getting and I have an MBA, I've got undergrad, but that's not the only way to be able to make a living and survive. And so, I really like the way that social media does open up some of those doors to people that never had a chance. Also, what we have now is there is a shortage of people like skilled labor, electricians, plumbers, and those guys, if you want to not go to school for 4 years, you want to go do a trade, you can get make six-figure salary a year as an electrician or a plumber now because there's such a demand for skilled labor.
Yeah, and you know something? I'm going to talk about Tony Pizza now, not in a negative way either. Okay, here you got YouTube. Tony Pizza comes along, makes good money on here, and nobody's giving him money except the fact that they find him entertaining. So you have other people like Tony Pizza on here that come on here and they make money because they're entertaining and they have their little groups of fans. People say, oh, I can't believe they're giving them money. It's none of our business if somebody gives somebody else's money. No one's forcing nobody to give money to anybody. That I really believe that. And I just find it quite amazing. Some of the people that are on here making money would not be making money anywhere else but YouTube. What do you think about that, James?
No, I totally agree. And it's funny that was the one thing that Sammy Gravano told Tony Pizza to do. And as much as, I dislike Sammy, you have to give him one thing, is that he's been able to take advantage of the pandemic. He was able to build a brand and redefine his brand and get 500,000 followers. So, he's 78 years old. So that's the thing that I think is cool, is that age isn't as much a obstacle anymore when it comes to doing shows, podcasts, social media.
I will, and before you mention anything on this, Tom, I'm going to be 63 in October. If someone told me I was going to come on here and make money, have like a job, I wasn't thinking about that. I wasn't thinking about my health. I wasn't thinking about anything. I'll probably be dead by now. But YouTube has given me the opportunity to make money. And Tom, it came out of the blue. I wasn't expecting YouTube to give me money or to put money in my pocket. I never even knew what the hell YouTube was until I went to my son's show. I used to make fun of my son and say, "Why do you got this show on? That's stupid. Why do you have that show?"
Yeah. Well, I will say this. Well, my son may come in frame, so I may need to move. Go off the camera. Hold on, sorry. I will say this. I believe in free market. Free market is what's going to dictate what people do if they're financially incentivized. So the truth of the matter is, whether you like some of these creators or not like some of these creators, that's your prerogative.
Yep.
Buddy, that's your prerogative. But the truth of the matter is, a free market will decide kind of who wins and who loses, and I think it's a good thing. I just hope that the ability for us to create content and the ability for us to speak freely and the ability for us to do what we're doing remains intact, and that's what's under threat right now, and that's what worries me.
And you know something, it seems like YouTube picks and chooses who can say what, but just like you just talking about this conversation that we're having. A year ago, the conversation we just had, YouTube probably wouldn't have allowed it a year ago. There has been a change. I don't know if you've witnessed that shift, Tom, in the way YouTube looks at conversations now and what's allowed and what's not.
They loosen up a little bit because I think threats like from Rumble and then also Elon Musk buying Twitter, I think indirectly had some effect as well.
Yeah, that's the free market and competition that does a lot to dictate things like this. And so, that's something we have to be thankful for, is that there is competition and there is free market, and that inevitably will help us as content creators be better with our product.
And when you think about YouTube has allowed informants, guys that probably thought that they were never going to do anything else in their life because they informed, to come on here and some of them make some damn good money. It opened up the market for them. So YouTube's opened the market up for a lot of people. A lot of people.
A 1-year-old. Pull up my screen.
No problem. Yeah, I mean, when you think about it, James, when you became my partner 8 months ago, when you came on here, you were very shy. You weren't sure whether you could do it.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, that's true. And so, we have a formula and, you're able to help me be more confident in presentation. So, I mean, it works well, being able to collaborate. I sure wouldn't ever want to do this on my own by myself.
Well, going from Danny Trio to James Proctor is a big jump, believe me. One more question, guys, before I close this out. I want your honest answer. I'm going to give you one person, a controversial person. First James, then Tom. What is your opinion of Elon Musk?
Elon Musk is good for our country and for the world. What he's doing with SpaceX, what he's doing as a businessman, I believe that if there's anyone that can help Twitter to become redefined, and I feel like that he can do it. He's not perfect. He's a difficult person to deal with, but I think he's one of the most fascinating people in the world, regardless of what you think of him as a person, the positive or the negative.
I think he's a genius. We almost do not talk about his influence on his country. Initially with Tesla, well, PayPal was one of his first big wins, and then now PayPal. Now Tesla. So that's people want a green economy. They want all this other stuff. EVs have been instrumental in that. He took on the big three. Took on the big three. And won. And then now I think he's going to just keep his eye on what he's going to be doing with AI, because I think that's the next. I think the next show we should talk about. Lee, I think you and I were talking a little bit about AI and stuff, what it's going to do, which I'm super interested in and super following now. But short answer is I think he's a genius. And
John, I know you're a big branding guy, Tom. I love branding. I love how it works. And I wish that if I was younger and I went to school, that's what I would have wanted to learn about branding. Is the brand that, and people say it's stupid, but I don't think anything Elon Musk does is stupid. So he's taken that from Twitter to X. Why do you think he's picked that brand? It's kind of odd, but why do you think he picked it? James first.
Yeah, that's a good question. I have no idea. I mean, it does bring, the thing is that it does bring attention to the brand. Just changing it to X, it is simple, but the thing is that he knows he's a master at being able to get the media to recognize him and tell his whatever he wants. And so I have no idea why X is a name, but I believe that it's because he knew that any name that he choose, that would be big news. It's publicity.
It's a brilliant move. One, we're talking about it. So imagine spending $44 billion. It's a balls move. Imagine spending $44 billion for a company, going into debt to buy that company, and then changing the name. You're paying for the name. You're paying for the goodwill of that company, and then changing it. The reason why is because we are now talking about it because they changed the name. What does X represent? A variable, changing, morphing, and that's a message you want to send. It's a brilliant business move and an even better branding move, in my opinion.
Yeah.
And I love what he did with San Francisco. He put the sign up. He had no permit to put the sign up, and now he's saying to San Francisco, "Make me take it down." I mean, because he knew they would never give him the permit. They knew they would never give him permit to put an X up there. He just did it. And Tom, if you remember years ago when that newspaper, what was it called? The one that came in Westchester, it went everywhere in the United States. But overnight, this newspaper company, what they did is they went around the country and they put their newspaper machines on each corners.
You're talking all about USA Today?
Yeah, USA Today, I think.
Yeah. So USA Today, that's right. So USA went all over the country and did that because they knew that they would have trouble competing with the big guys. So they went out and did it, and nobody would say anything to them because they were afraid to go mess with a newspaper. I mean, that's branding.
Well, and they had a unique feel, a modern feel and graphics, and more kind of like the predecessor to infographics that we have today. The way their stories were, more of a digest version, is pretty fascinating.
Tom, I'm going to let you get to your kid, Tom. I appreciate you coming on here today. And we were all over the place in conversation. I hope people find this entertaining.
It's my pleasure. My pleasure. Thank you. So I'm getting the hook from the little one. Be good, guys. Thank you, Lee. Thank you, James. Bye, everybody. And
I'll have Tom's information underneath here. Okay. Poor Tom. He was hanging on there at the end, wasn't he?
Yeah, he was. No, it's fascinating because I think it's relevant to, what we're doing, what, it affects everyone, our viewers, us, it's just, to me, very interesting, the dynamics that are in place. But yeah, I just hope that we can protect our freedoms. I mean, I just feel that what we're seeing today, regardless of who you support, that it's a dangerous precedent.
And we were all over the place today in conversation because there's so much stuff going on. It doesn't matter whether you're in the mob genre. The fact of the matter is there's a lot of stuff going on, and people are discussing it. They're discussing it in chat rooms. Shows turn into political shows. You watch Angel's show, it will go from here to here because people change the conversation. They want to talk about other things. Any of these shows, it happens.
Sure.
So, I like to say, if you have not, let me put this up first, please. Please subscribe, hit the like button, the reminder bell. Thank you. We really appreciate that. The reminder bell is the most important thing to hit. So you'll know when these shows come up, especially if we do a live. And also, you could try our Patreon page. We're doing very well, and it's growing every day. It's called Angel Gotti, my father's daughter, and her and Marla are in it. With James and I do certain stuff, and they do certain stuff, and we put our stuff together in the Patreon page. And Angel and Marla have agreed that they will show their face when we get to 100, and we're almost there, people. So
yep, we're almost there.
Okay, and let's see, and that's going to be it. James, anything else you want to say?
No, I think that's it. You know, we've got a lot going on through the month of September, so you know there's going to be a lot of interesting, crazy content. It'll be you know, hopefully viral as well.
And I will be going on the road and doing interviews.
Yeah,
and that's going to happen as of September, and I'll be out on the road for a while, and that's something that we'll talk to you, and we'll put some videos up on it soon.
Yep.
So everybody, thank you. Any information you need will be underneath this video when we put it up. Take care.
Thanks, everyone.